My name is Yoshiha Tsuchida, or Yoshi for short. I'm going to be giving a topic on how my team, EQStudios, we made our very first game from zero experience at all in the gaming industry. Starting from zero. I'm going to start off by kind of introducing myself and my students a bit, just to give you guys kind of an idea where we come from. So I am right now 22 years old. I'm the level designer and music composer for the studio. I did not go to college. I kind of jumped into this when I was about 18 years old. And yeah, the only game I have that I develop is the Painscreek Killings. So EQStudios was originally a 3-man freelancing team. They were contracted to make advertisements in CG for other companies. And after some time from hopping from job to job, they kind of decided that they wanted to make their own IP, basically their own intellectual property. And that's when I was kind of approached. I was asked, hey, do you want to make a game? It's going to take a year of development. I know you want to go to college. And that was still on my agenda at the time. I wanted to go to college. I was 18 years old back then. And I was kind of stoked. I thought, wow, at 19 years old, I'll have my first commercial product. 4 years later, we released the Painscreek Killings, which is EQStudios' very first game. Right now, it's sitting. We have 97% positive reviews. We're working with a publisher called Meridian 4. And yeah, this talk is going to be kind of like the process of us from kind of where I mentioned to how do we get to this point. And I just wanted to just clarify to just clear the air that I'm only speaking from my experience. This is not a formula of how to get to where we are. It's merely just me trying to share my experience, and hopefully you guys can get something out of it. We wanted to rewind 4 years back, and we told ourselves we wanted to make a game. Great. So where do we start? And the first thing that we asked ourselves was, what game can you make? Unfortunately, the question is not necessarily what game would you like to make, as was the case for us. Before you can make your sci-fi fantasy of blasting aliens through space, you might have to make a Flappy Bird knockoff. And that's kind of, in order to answer the question, what game can we make, we had to kind of look at our strength and our limitations. So coming from a background of when I first started working with EQStudios, I only had a hobbyist level in 3D modeling and music production. That's about it. So in other words, the whole team, including me, we were decent in creating 3D assets, hobbyist level. A couple of the people there had some foundation in screenwriting. They were able to write pretty decent stories. And we took a look at also our limitations, what we lacked in. None of us were artists. None of us, we didn't have a concept artist. None of us were programmers. Very big red flag, by the way. Yes. None of us knew how to code. We didn't know how to make multiplayer games. We didn't know how to work with servers. NPCs, we didn't know how to program them. We weren't really confident in doing rigging and animating and doing voice acting if necessary. And yeah, we have no experience in working with other game engines. And from there, we realized right off the bat that the types of games that we could make was very, very limited. And this is something I guess we had to come to terms with, that, okay, what game can we actually make? And this is something I think that's very important for people to kind of understand, because game development is a very time-consuming, lengthy, and very enduring process. And I think it's very important to know where you stand before you jump into a project. And yes, so we decided that considering our limitations and considering our strengths, we decided to go with a walking simulator kind of model for our game. Games like Firewatch, Vanishing of Ethan Carter, Gone Home, those were kind of models that we thought, hey, we can make something like this. It's might be challenging, where we don't know where exactly to start from, but this is an idea that for a direction that we can go with our first game. And so one thing I also want to talk about limitations is that when looking at our skills, we could easily make, I don't know if you guys know the game Dear Esther. That's one of the very oldest walking simulators. And we could have made something very similar. You just walk, you see pretty graphics, hear like someone giving a short story, and you reach the end, and that's it. We could have done that. But when talking about your limitations, it is good to kind of, as growing developers, it is good to think outside your comfort zone. Because if you were to work within your own comfort zone, then pretty much you're reinventing the wheel. You're already making something that you know that you can make. So we decided to kind of dip our toes into things that we don't necessarily are accustomed with, that we're not necessarily sure how to pull off. So going back into the walking simulator genre, we decided to, for concept sketch artists, we decided to, instead of hiring someone to do our work for us, we did all our research through Google Images. We just Googled things and took reference images from certain places, certain buildings. If we wanted to come up, find a design for a building, we took real-life image, and that's how we kind of made our makeshift, how we kind of skimmed off the art process. And for programming, we found a visual scripting method that Unreal Engine had at the time, and we thought that for our project, it was sufficient enough for our purposes. Yes. So yes, just wanted to mention that none of us in the studio really, we were being optimistic, but just so you know. And this is our way of kind of being able to process certain things that we were unsure of and try to make a step forward. So yeah, after you kind of come up with your idea, so in this case, it is very, very important to do your research. Understand what makes a game good or bad. I guess I want to go on a tangent a little bit to talk about why it is a good investment or better investment to work on to make a good game. So, yes, recently, full disclosure, when we released our game, we did zero marketing for our game. So we bombed in terms of marketing. We did everything wrong. And we after kind of realizing, after we released our game and we kind of looked at the do's and don'ts of marketing, we realized we did 50% of the things they told us not to do. And so, but what we were able to salvage from this big problem or dilemma that we had was that we made a good game. Good games doesn't necessarily sell, and that's the hard fact about game development. But we had a good product on our hands. And recently, Extra Credits, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that channel. It's a YouTube channel that covers a lot of things within the game industry, and they picked up our game, and we would feature on one of their videos. Fanatical also, they have a bundle called the Slayer bundle that also they picked up our game that they wanted us to put in their bundle. And this is what I mean by having a good product is a worthy investment, because even we completely failed in terms of marketing our own game through word of mouth or through people's reviews and people's attesting that our game is a good game. We were still able to salvage what we had, and we were still able to make a living of what we do. So yes, understanding what makes a good game. There's no technical formula to understanding this, but doing your research is very important. If you want to make platforming games, look at all the good platforming games and understand what makes it good and what makes it bad. And I'm going to explain what we did for our side. So yeah, don't be afraid to take successful elements from a game. Bad developers take only one idea, and when they release it, people call it, oh, it's just a knockoff. It is a cheap gimmick. But good developers, they steal from multiple ideas and make it something of their own. It's like music. You steal other people's ideas and mix your own style, and you release it. And that is I guess, as the greatest thing about indie developers, that where they can really be innovative. Take things that work, mold it together, and create something amazing for that. Do not recreate successful games. This is this is a very iffy topic, just because there's no. This is my opinion and from my experience. Do not recreate successful games, because if you want to make a knockoff of Mario or a platform game like Super Mario, you have to be better than that if you want your game to sell. So, what is the vision for your game? That's another question that you have to ask yourself, and understanding your vision is key to moving on with your project. Everything that you will do from now on, whether the development phase or whether marketing or creating your features, will be based on your vision for the game. Our vision for our first game, we wanted to create a detective game where the player truly feels like he or she is an investigator solving a murder mystery. Everything we did then, whether if it's changing the script or just changing certain parts of whether we had to change the style of our assets or whether we had to change the direction of the ending of the game, was based on this. And this is the thing that never will change once you decide to put your foot in it, or should never change, should I say? Okay, so these are the 3 games that were really big influence. We really influenced our direction for Painscreek Killings. So yeah, one of the things we wanted was we didn't want hand-holding in our games. We wanted no quest markers. This is very old style game design feeling. And Ether 1 actually does that really well. Has no hand-holding. Yeah, it has really great puzzle designs. But one of the flaws I felt like from this game that it had was the fact that since you were playing in kind of a dream world, there were no rules. Anything goes. And for some people said that because of that reason that sometimes the puzzles felt a little unfair because they were introduced to rules that they didn't necessarily know existed. So that's something that we were able to kind of take that point and realize, okay, this is what we can do to improve our game. Create the rules first on when you play the game. Understand where you are, understand the setting better. Gone Home, this is the game that we played, and after playing it, we thought, if someone can make this game, we can make it too. We love the simplistic nature of Gone Home. With very few mechanics, it told a very, very great story. And at the same time, it has apart from the controversial content at the time, we thought that this was a great model for what our game could be in terms of our very first game. Shiver, The Vanishing Hitchhiker, is a 2D point-and-click adventure game. And this is one of the games that, even though it's a 2D game, it creeped me the hell out of it. And this is something, again, that we thought, wow, they pulled off a really good atmosphere, great storytelling. How can we put that into our game too? Because what The Vanishing Hitchhiker did and what the emotions and the fear I had playing this game, I wanted to put into my game too. And this is where you kind of have to dissect the game and understand what works and what doesn't work. There are very great reviewers out there that kind of can pull and take apart games and understand why certain designs work. But yes. Okay, next, create a proof of concept. So what a proof of concept is pretty much a small slice of your game to show and prove people that your game is possible. And that means choosing your engine. So you have to find a way to choose, you have to choose an engine that best suits your vision. Again, vision is key. Everything that you do from now on has to be fitting towards the vision. If you want to make 2D games, Unity has the best tools for sprite makers, again, I'm not familiar with the 2D side, but Unity is one of the best engines out there for mobile and 2D games. Unreal Engine has one of the best out-of-the-box tools. When you click and drag presets, the lighting looks beautiful out of the box. The shaders are much better than Unity, in my opinion, at the time. And keep in mind, this was 4 years ago when we first started. So then, the second part is also understanding the components within your game engine. Now this, I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand the components in your game engine. because if you do not understand the components within your game engine, you are at the mercy of whatever error comes up to your screen. And this would help also with optimization, with also troubleshooting, and basically you have to be able to find a way to understand how your game engine works. So it's the same way as like kind of building a computer, I guess. If a computer doesn't work, it doesn't turn on, it can't run, it crashes, there's something inside the computer that's faulty. You could give it to someone and you could pay someone to look at your computer, or you can do it yourself and find out which part and which function within your computer does not work. And so understanding understand the components is the same thing. Like, is the CPU, like, are you using too much CPU power? Is that why the most easiest thing to judge if your game's not working is the frame rate goes high, or it doesn't play, or certain things. But you can't just say, oh, the frame rate's high. You have to understand, are you using too much CPU power? Are you pushing the GPU power a little too much? Are you having too many triangles? Are you having too many draw calls? All these elements, all these components have to be understood when working with the game engine. Okay, and this brings up to my next point, which is be prepared to do lots and lots of testing. So for our proof of concept, what we did was we kind of created a water shader, we created some foliage shaders, we created terrain, buildings, and created some sort of scene where players can just walk around, pick up items, read content, hear audio, and we realized it's possible. So basically this proof of concept is supposed to encapsulate everything that you want your game to have, and kind of prove to either your publishers, or if you're pitching to publishers, if you want other people to join, that it's possible that your idea can be pulled off. And this is a process where the developers have to really iron out all the kind of kinks of what they want in their game. Without a good proof of concept, again, you're just liable to your initial pitch, which is having something visual is very, very powerful when wanting to pitch something. Okay. Yes, so actually I want to also mention that in the end we decided to work with the Unity engine. And actually, why did we decide to go with Unity? That's another interesting point. As I mentioned before, kind of Unreal has better out-of-the-box tools, and definitely that was, I guess, our first option when we decided what engine we wanted to use. But going back to what I said earlier about stepping out of your comfort zone, if we kind of relied on the tools for Unreal, then we're kind of limited to what the tools are able to do for us. If you want to be good developers, if you want to be able to kind of understand and learn the components of the game, start from zero. Then that's pretty much what Unity offered. It was a clean slate. So if we wanted to build a good lighting system, there are some good plugins online. But then again, you have to understand the basics of composition. I have to understand the shader technology. These are all things that we kind of thought that if we use Unreal, we wouldn't be able to fully understand ourselves, and we'll just get the generic Unreal look. So we decided to go with Unity. So we rebuilt everything from scratch, building our own shaders, and again, lots and lots of testing. We wanted, yes.
Part of the development process where you made that
switch to
from Unreal to Unity. Like, how many years have you been working in Unreal first? We didn't start our development process with Unreal. So we were just doing testing phases and testing both engines to see which one was better for us. And yeah, just as a collective, as a team, we decided that Unity would probably be a better investment for us as developers, not necessarily for our project, but to basically understand how game engines work better, because it would force us to think outside the box. It forces us to be creative of how to tackle certain problems. So yes, that is. So then for us, Unity became kind of our main engine of how we worked and how we developed. And next, kind of goes on to that point. Plan well. So once we kind of had, like, we were able to fulfill all our kind of, we were able to do our tech demo, be able to kind of show that, okay, we can pull off a scene, a simple scene. We have an idea, we have a story, we already have everything planned. Next is to plan your entire development process. And I think this is common knowledge, but plan from general to detail. An artist can tell you exactly the same thing. Like, you start with the form, and then you start to go into the details with all the eyes and like the hairs. But yeah, you start with general. A famous quote that I really like is like, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And this is very, very relevant to game development as well. If you do not have a well thought out plan, you are going to be making mistakes after mistakes and like not knowing not progressing properly. So yes, plan from general to detail. Plan your production pipeline as well. And what production pipeline is the process in which different departments within your, the team work together. So if you have someone who's a 3D asset, in our case, someone who's a 3D asset artist, and he has to work together with the person who's doing the scripting and combine that and put it into the scene and kind of see if everything runs well. That is the production pipeline. And that is very important because, thank you. That is very important because that determines how fast or how soon you, how well the project will run. So for us, we made so many problems, and this is again an iffy topic because as beginner developers, we didn't really know how to plan properly because we had no experience from understanding what works and what didn't work. And that goes beyond the last slide where it talked about lots and lots of testing, prepared to be doing lots and lots of testing. Okay, and also being that, again, this was a very, very kind of unsure pipeline for us when we first started, we were always prepared to change if necessary for our next for any reason. And this is again very again iffy topic to kind of really say that this is the right way to do it, because for everybody, depending on which engine and the type of game that you're making, your pipeline, your production, your planning will be very different. For us, first of all, we started with our pre-production pipeline, which was pretty much coming up with a story, doing the tech demo, and then transitioning from the pre-production to the production phase, where we built the 3D assets. We already have like this kind of set formula where we wanted to of how the style of our objects, the style of our characters, the style of the town, and it was pretty much just grinding through that to be able to make it happen. And yeah, once you have a well thought out plan, pretty much the only thing that's left for you to do is to execute it. Again, I made it out in a very, easy, like almost like, step-by-step process, but it is not. Everything I showed here is what I would have done if I were to redo the entire project. That is completely not how we did the entire project. We made for the village that you see in our game. It took me 6 months to build a prototype. 6 months, because I really had no idea what I was doing, and it turned out that prototype could not be used for our game, and because it was way too big, and it was to be able to cover detail for the entire area was impossible with our manpower. So what I did was I scrapped it, and I had to rebuild the entire village again to be able to compensate for the purpose of our development. And it took me about 3 weeks to build the second prototype. And that kind of shows how much time spent into learning and making mistakes during the 6 months versus if I had to do it again, it would have taken me a lot less time. So yeah, be prepared to spend 50% of your time making mistakes, failing, changing your plan if necessary. But the most important thing is don't give up, because you're still in the learning process. So yes, I'm reaching the end of my talk, so extra tips. Market your game early. I can say that from experience. Market your game early. Approach publishers if you have to. If you already have experience in marketing and you're confident, by all means go ahead. And another tip for working together as a team: have a common base for your team. I think this is important. Like, of course, the project is important, but also being able to kind of have kind of good communication, good relationship with your teammates. I think is very important. A healthy team is a happy team, and a happy team makes games faster. Yeah, and you won't know if you don't try. So this is what again, going back to the part where you want to go out of your comfort zone a little bit. Yeah, you don't bite more than you can chew, but at least be able to step out of your area to be able so that you're able to kind of test the waters, understand things, and get a better sense of what you don't know, and don't be discouraged by failures. That's I think another important thing that I learned. We spent 4 years on production for this game. If we had to redo this entire project again, we would probably finish it in about 2 years. And that means that 2 years of our time was spent making mistakes, going back to the drawing board, looking at things that didn't work, and trying to make things, trying to find better ways to execute them. And also the fact that our plan probably wasn't in its best form at the time. But yes, definitely, if you want to get into game development, this is my experience from it, and this is something that, again, I'm only speaking from my experience. This is something that I stepped into very naively. I didn't know what to expect, but also another important thing is be prepared to work hard. If you decide to work with publishers, which is what we're doing now, you are working with a deadline. You're working towards a deadline with them, and that means that you're going to have to be able to kind of even lose some couple hours in sleep to be able to pull off the project. And that for me was a very big wake-up call for me, because I was such a lazy student. I did not get good grades, but working with a team like this allowed me to be able to think publicly, be able to live, again, have better communication with my team, be able to become a better person myself. So, yeah, definitely don't give up. Don't be discouraged by failures. And if you don't know anything, try it out. That's all I can say. Yeah, thanks for listening. That is pretty much. Oh, yeah. You guys have any questions?
Yeah, so we do want to take questions, but we have to get out of here at 8, so it's 10 till. Yeah, so you can ask a few questions real quick right now, but we need to generally start packing up.
Hello. Hey, great talk.
Thank you.
So a question for you about testing. So how did you handle testing? Was it all done in-house, or did you have external areas where you did game testing to make sure that it was all polished and ready to go? Thank you.
So I just want to repeat your question. How did we do our testing?
Yeah, was it all done in-house, or did you, just to make sure that the game is playing exactly the way you want it to, or did you go out and also do testing other places?
For our case, we did everything in-house. Yeah, including even when we did our first alpha and beta tests, I think that was all in-house too. We just gathered friends and other people that we knew were gamers and had them test our game. Yeah, we didn't. I think this was kind of kind of showed on a little bit how we didn't really network properly. I think that was. Larry mentioned that really well. It's like put yourself out there in terms of people. And that's something that we didn't do. We worked everything in-house. For all we know, since we worked with friends, they could have just said our game was really great. But I would definitely recommend getting feedback from other people as well. But yeah, we did everything in-house.
Yes. So I guess this is probably the last question because of time, but I have a bunch of questions. Great. Well, number one is I'll limit it to 3. How many people were on the team, and did you guys work remotely or in person at times? And the final question is, are you guys working on something now?
Yes. Okay, so for the first question, we originally had, when we started the production, I guess the pre-production, there was only 4 people, but eventually our team right now currently is 7 people. Yeah, I think as the development process kind of went through, some people left, some people came, but generally a good five people working on the team. I'm sorry, on the game. Yes, we are working on something right now. I'm not allowed to disclose that too much, but yes, we are working on something. What he said.